The emergency bay doors slid open with a sharp hiss as Dr. Kevin Taylor sprinted toward the incoming patient. He had been working the night shift for 6 years now, and construction accidents were nothing new on Station Prime. This was the third one this month alone. Workers got careless when deadlines were tight and someone always paid the price. A team of paramedics rushed through the doors, wheeling in a young woman on a stretcher. She was covered head to toe in gray dust and debris, her work clothes torn and dirty. Kevin grabbed his medical scanner and moved closer, already running through protocols in his head. "What happened?" he asked, not looking up from his equipment. The lead paramedic, a veteran named Rick, looked shaken. That was unusual. Rick had seen everything. Steel beam collapse on deck 7. The support gave way during welding work. Beam fell straight down onto her chest. Witnesses say she was trapped underneath for at least 2 minutes before the crew could lift it off. Kevin's hands froze. He looked up sharply at the woman on the stretcher. 2 minutes under a steel beam meant crushed ribs at minimum, punctured lungs, internal bleeding, probably multiple organ damage. People didn't walk away from accidents like that. They didn't even survive them most of the time. But this woman was sitting up on the stretcher, brushing dust off her jacket like she had just walked through a dirty hallway. She didn't look scared or hurt or in shock. She looked annoyed. "Miss, I need you to lie down immediately," Kevin said, his voice firm but not unkind. "We have to check your injuries." The woman turned to look at him. She had dark brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her eyes were a bright green that seemed strangely alert. Too alert for someone who should be barely conscious. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm really okay. Just some bruising. Nothing serious. I'd like to go home now." Kevin shook his head. "That's not how this works. A steel beam fell on you. Even if you feel fine right now, you could have internal injuries that haven't shown symptoms yet. We need to scan you. It's standard procedure." Something flickered in her eyes. Fear maybe. Or worry. "Look, I'm telling you I'm fine. I don't need scans or treatment. Please just let me leave." There was an edge to her voice now, almost desperate. Kevin had dealt with patients in denial before, people so shocked by their accidents that they couldn't process what had happened to them. But this felt different somehow. "I can't do that," Kevin said gently. "Give me 5 minutes. Let me run one scan, and if everything looks good, we'll talk about discharge. Deal?" The woman hesitated, then seemed to realize she didn't have a choice. She nodded slowly and lay back on the stretcher, but her whole body was tense. Kevin activated the medical scanner, a standard diagnostic tool that every station used. It would take a small blood sample, analyze it, and give him a complete picture of her physical condition within seconds. Bone density, organ function, cellular health, everything he needed to know. The scanner hummed softly as it powered up. A blue light washed over the woman's arm as the needle extracted a tiny blood sample. Kevin watched the display screen, waiting for the preliminary data to appear. The humming changed. It got higher, sharper, almost like a whine. Kevin frowned and tapped the screen. That wasn't normal. "What's wrong?" the woman asked, and now she definitely sounded worried. "I don't know, it's just..." Kevin stopped talking as warning lights began flashing across the scanner's display. Error messages scrolled past too fast to read. The temperature gauge was climbing rapidly into the danger zone. "Turn it off," the woman said urgently, sitting up again. "Please turn it off right now." "I'm trying." Kevin stabbed at the control panel, but nothing was responding. The scanner had locked into some kind of feedback loop. The whining got louder and louder. Other medical staff were backing away from the machine. Then 3 words appeared on the display screen, frozen and blinking in bright red letters. "Species not in database." Kevin had exactly 1 second to process what that meant before the scanner exploded. The blast wasn't huge, but it was violent. Sparks and chunks of melted plastic sprayed across the medical bay. Kevin threw himself backward, hitting the floor hard as alarms started screaming throughout the station. The emergency protocols kicked in automatically. Doors sealed. Fire suppressant foam sprayed from ceiling nozzles, covering everything in white chemical clouds. Kevin wiped foam out of his eyes and looked around frantically. Through the chaos and the foam, he saw the woman jump off the stretcher. She moved fast, faster than anyone who had just been in an explosion should be able to move. She was heading for the emergency exit on the far side of the bay. "Wait!" Kevin called out, scrambling to his feet. "Stop!" But the security lockdown had already engaged. All the exits sealed with heavy magnetic locks. The woman reached the door and pulled at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. She turned around slowly, and Kevin saw real fear on her face now. Not fear of being hurt, but fear of something else. Fear of being caught. Who are you? Kevin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What are you? The woman closed her eyes for a moment, like she was making a difficult decision. When she opened them again, she looked resigned. Defeated. My name is Jade, she said quietly. Jade Cooper. And I'm human. Kevin felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. That's impossible. Humans are myths. They don't exist. They're just stories about some lost species that... His words were cut off by his communication device crackling to life. Medical Bay 4, this is station security. We're detecting a level 5 biological anomaly at your location. All exits are sealed. Armed response team is on the way. Nobody moves until we get there. Jade let out a long, shaky breath. I'm sorry, she said, looking at Kevin with those strange green eyes. I never wanted anyone to find out. I've been so careful for 3 years. 3 years of hiding, and one stupid accident ruins everything. Kevin's mind was racing. Humans were supposed to be quarantined. Locked away in some distant part of the galaxy that nobody was allowed to visit. The Galactic Council had made that decision 500 years ago, and as far as anyone knew, it was still in effect. Humans weren't supposed to be here. They weren't supposed to be anywhere near Council space. How? Kevin managed to ask. How are you here? How did you get past the security screenings? I modified my genetic markers, Jade said. Made myself look enough like a Centaurian hybrid that the standard scans didn't flag me. It worked perfectly until your scanner went deeper than normal scans go. That machine was looking at things I couldn't fake. The bay door suddenly burst open and 6 security officers rushed in, weapons drawn and aimed directly at Jade. She raised her hands slowly, carefully, making sure they could see she wasn't a threat. The security chief, a tall Vexian named Court, kept his weapon steady. Dr. Taylor, step away from the biological anomaly. Her name is Jade, Kevin said, not moving. And she's my patient. She's a prohibited species, Court corrected coldly. And a violation of Galactic Council law. Jade Cooper, you are being detained under Emergency Protocol 7. Do not resist or we will use force. Jade kept her hands raised as 2 officers moved in with restraints. She looked at Kevin one last time before they led her away. I really am sorry about your scanner. And I really was fine. The beam hurt, but I heal fast. That's what humans do. We heal fast and survive things that kill everyone else. As the security team escorted her out of the medical bay, Kevin stood in the ruins of his workspace and tried to make sense of what had just happened. The scanner hadn't malfunctioned. It had simply encountered something it had never seen before. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. A human. And if one human had been living here undetected for 3 years, Kevin thought with growing unease, how many others might be out there? The detention facility wasn't designed to be cruel, but it wasn't comfortable either. Jade sat in a chair that was slightly too small for her, facing 3 beings who had traveled across 2 sectors just to question her. The Galactic Council didn't waste time when a prohibited species showed up where it shouldn't be. Dr. Kevin Taylor stood behind a thick glass window in the observation room. He had requested permission to be present as her medical advocate, and surprisingly they had agreed. Maybe they wanted him there as a witness. Maybe they just didn't care enough to say no. The lead interrogator was a tall Centaurian named Administrator Vex. He had 4 fingers on each hand and eyes that looked almost human, except for the golden color. He placed his hands flat on the table and stared at Jade with an expression that could have been anger or just intense focus. Let's establish the facts, Vex said, his voice cold and precise. You are human. A species that has been quarantined from all Galactic Council space for 500 standard years. Your very presence here is a violation of the Forbidden Species Act. Do you understand the severity of this situation? Jade met his stare without flinching. I understand you're scared of me because I'm different. I've understood that my whole life. Scared? Vex leaned back slightly. We're not scared. We're cautious. There's a difference. Is there? Jade asked quietly. The second interrogator spoke up. Her name was Coordinator Tesh, and she was an Aquilian with feathers instead of hair and eyes that were sharp and intelligent. How did you get here, Jade? Humans aren't supposed to have access to this part of space. Where did you come from? Jade was silent for a moment, clearly debating how much to tell them. Kevin watched her face through the glass and saw her make a decision. She straightened up in her chair. My great-great-grandparents were passengers on a colony ship called the New Dawn, she began. They were heading to a settlement world on the far edge of human space. This was about 150 years ago. Something went wrong with the ship's navigation system. They had to make an emergency landing on an unclaimed planet in the frontier systems. And? Tesh prompted. And by the time they got communications working again, they learned about the quarantine. They couldn't go back to Earth. They couldn't contact any human colonies. So they stayed where they landed. They built a settlement. Had children. Those children had children. I was born there, on a world we call Haven. The third interrogator finally spoke. He was an elderly Torvin named Arbiter Klein, and his voice was surprisingly gentle compared to the others. How many people live on Haven? Jade hesitated again. Kevin could see the conflict on her face. If she told them, she would be exposing her entire community. But if she didn't, they would find out anyway. About 50,000, she said finally. Maybe more by now. I left 2 years ago to find work. The number hung in the air like a bomb. 50,000 humans, living in secret for generations. Coordinator Tesh pulled up a holographic display and began typing rapidly, probably sending this information up the chain of command. 50,000, Vex repeated slowly. An entire hidden colony. And you decided to leave this colony and come here. Why? I'm a structural engineer, Jade said simply. I wanted to work on real projects, not just maintenance on Haven. I wanted to see other worlds, meet other people. I wanted a life beyond hiding. So you falsified your genetic identity and infiltrated Council space, Vex said sharply. I got a job, Jade corrected. I worked hard. I followed the rules. I helped people. For 3 years, nobody had any problems with me until that scanner dug deeper than it should have. Kevin activated his communication link to the interrogation room. If I may interject? Vex looked annoyed but nodded toward the observation window. I've been analyzing the scans we did manage to get before the equipment failed, Kevin said. The structural damage from that beam should have killed her. Her ribs were fractured in 4 places. But by the time your team arrived 6 hours later, those fractures were already healing. Her cellular regeneration is operating at a level I've never seen in any species. Coordinator Tesh pulled up the medical data on her display. Her feathered crest rose in what might have been surprise or alarm. This says her bone density is 3 times that of a standard Centaurian. Her muscle fiber composition doesn't match anything in our biological databases. Because I'm not in your databases, Jade said. You've spent 500 years pretending humans don't exist. Now you're surprised that we're different from everyone else. Different is an understatement, Vex said coldly. He gestured at another display showing cellular analysis. Your body was actively repairing broken bones while you were still trapped under that beam. Most species would have gone into shock. You got up and walked away. It hurt, Jade said quietly. Just because I heal fast doesn't mean I don't feel pain. I'm not a monster. I'm just built to survive. Arbiter Klein leaned forward, his old eyes studying her carefully. Is this normal for all humans? This level of resilience? Jade shrugged. I guess so. I've never met anyone who wasn't human, so I don't have anything to compare it to. We get sick sometimes. We get hurt. Things hurt us. We just recover faster than you do, apparently. We didn't know we were special until we started learning about other species. Kevin spoke up again from the observation room. I've been researching human evolutionary history based on old records. Earth had significantly higher gravity than most Council homeworlds. The planet also had extreme temperature variations, aggressive predators, and thousands of competing diseases. Humans evolved to survive one of the harshest environments in known space. Which is exactly why the quarantine exists, Vex said, standing abruptly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. Humans are too resilient, too adaptable, too dangerous to integrate into galactic society. Dangerous. Jade's voice rose for the first time. I've saved lives on this station. Last year there was a coolant leak in Section 9. Toxic gas, sub-zero temperatures. Everyone evacuated except me. I went in and sealed the breach manually because I could survive the exposure long enough to fix it. 3 families lived because I was there. How is that dangerous? Kevin remembered that incident. The mysterious engineer who had appeared from nowhere, fixed the impossible problem, and vanished before anyone could properly identify them. That had been Jade. Coordinator Tesh looked troubled. Saving lives doesn't change what you are. Human expansion 500 years ago was aggressive. Your species colonized worlds at a rate that made other civilizations nervous. Everywhere humans went, you dominated without even trying. So you locked us away, Jade said bitterly. Punished an entire species for being good at surviving. Punished you for being too good at it, Vex corrected. When humans entered galactic space, You spread faster than any species in recorded history. You adapted to environments that others couldn't survive. You outcompete everyone without weapons, without conquest, just by being inherently superior at survival. Arbiter Klein raised a hand, calling for calm. The question before us now is what to do. We know there's a human colony. We know at least one human has been living among us undetected for years. We need to decide how to proceed. Kevin activated his communication link again. I'd like to say something. Go ahead, Doctor, Klein said. I've spent the last day analyzing every aspect of Jade's biology that I could access. Yes, humans are physically superior in many measurable ways. But Jade also demonstrated compassion when she saved those families. She showed restraint when she could have fought back against security. She's been living peacefully among us for 3 years. Biology isn't destiny. You can't judge an entire species based on fear of what they might do. Well said, Doctor, Vex replied coldly. But idealism doesn't make policy. Reality does. Coordinator Tesh looked at Jade with something that might have been sympathy. The Council will need time to deliberate on this. In the meantime, we're dispatching a fleet to locate and assess your colony. For everyone's safety, you'll remain in protective custody here. Jade's face went pale. You're going to Haven? Please, you have to understand they're peaceful people. They won't fight you. They won't resist. Just don't hurt them. That depends entirely on what we find when we arrive, Arbiter Klein said softly. As the interrogators filed out and security came to escort Jade back to her cell, Kevin stayed in the observation room, staring at the medical data still displayed on his screens. Somewhere out in the frontier systems was an entire colony of people like her. People who could survive things that would kill anyone else. People who had been hidden away for 500 years because the galaxy was afraid of them. And now that fear was about to come face to face with reality. Dr. Kevin Taylor hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. His office looked like a disaster zone, with empty coffee cups scattered across every surface and holographic displays floating in the air showing data from dozens of different angles. Every time he thought he understood human biology, he discovered something new that made him question everything he knew about evolutionary science. You look terrible, Jade's voice came through the communication screen. She was still in detention, but Kevin had been granted permission to continue medical consultations with her. It was the Council's way of gathering more information while pretending to be helpful. Thanks for the observation, Kevin muttered, rubbing his eyes. But I can't stop looking at this data. Your biology is rewriting textbooks, Jade. Do you understand that? She leaned closer to the camera in her cell. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's an incredible thing. Kevin pulled up a comparison chart and rotated it so she could see. Look at this. Most species in the Galactic Council evolved on worlds with lower gravity than Earth. Centaurians developed on a planet with about 70% of Earth's gravity. Vexians evolved in an environment with even less, around 60%. Their skeletons are lighter, their muscle density is lower. They adapted to gentler worlds. And humans? Jade asked. Humans evolved in 100% Earth gravity, which is higher than almost any other inhabited world in Council space. Your bones had to be denser just to support your body weight. Your muscles had to be stronger just to move around. What seems normal to you is extreme by everyone else's standards. Kevin pulled up another display, this one showing cellular analysis. But it's not just gravity. I've been reading every old record I can find about Earth. Your planet had temperature swings from far below freezing to extreme heat. Humans had to adapt to survive in deserts, frozen tundras, humid jungles, everything. Most species evolved in one climate type. Humans evolved to handle all of them. Jade was quiet for a moment, processing this information. I never thought about it that way. On Haven we just lived our lives. We knew we were different after we started learning about other species, but we didn't realize how different. There's more, Kevin said, his excitement growing despite his exhaustion. Earth had predators that hunted humans. Large animals with claws and teeth that could kill you easily. Most Council species evolved as either predators themselves or developed in environments where predation wasn't a significant threat. Humans had to develop endurance, pattern recognition, strategic thinking, and the ability to work in groups just to survive being hunted. He pulled up medical data from Jade's accident. When that beam fell on you, I documented everything in the few minutes before the scanner exploded. You had 4 fractured ribs. The impact should have caused severe internal bleeding and organ damage. But your body immediately started prioritizing repairs. Blood clotting factors activated faster than I've ever seen. Your cellular regeneration kicked into overdrive. By the time the Council representatives arrived, Your bones were already knitting back together. That's just how we heal, Jade said softly. It's not normal. Kevin was almost shouting now, though not from anger. From pure scientific amazement. I ran simulations based on your healing rate. A broken bone that would take a Centaurian 6 weeks to heal completely would take you maybe 10 days. A bacterial infection that could kill a Vexian in 3 days, your immune system would eliminate in a few hours. He brought up another chart. Your immune system is the most aggressive I've ever studied. It doesn't just fight off infections, it hunts them down. I exposed a sample of your blood to 7 different pathogens that are deadly to other species. Your white blood cells destroyed all of them within minutes. You're essentially immune to most diseases that affect the rest of the galaxy. Jade looked uncomfortable. Kevin, you're making me sound like some kind of super soldier. I'm not. I get colds. I get tired. I can be hurt. I'm not invincible. No, you're not invincible, Kevin agreed. But you're far more resilient than any other known species. And that's what scares the Council. It's not that you're aggressive or violent. It's that you're too good at surviving. A priority message flashed on Kevin's screen. He opened it and felt his stomach tighten. They found Haven. Jade's face went pale. Already? The Council fleet arrived at your colony 2 hours ago. Kevin patched in the live transmission feed. Administrator Vex appeared on the screen, standing on what looked like a pleasant world with blue skies and green vegetation. Behind him, Kevin could see buildings that blended human architecture with the natural landscape. Dr. Taylor, Vex said, his voice carrying an edge of confusion. We've made contact with the human colony. It's not what we expected. What do you mean? Kevin asked. Vex turned his camera around, showing the colony center. Humans were going about their daily business, working, talking, living ordinary lives. But mixed among them were other species. Kevin spotted Vexians, Centaurians, even a few Aquilians walking through the streets. There are non-humans living here, Vex said, and he sounded genuinely bewildered. Voluntarily. They've established homes, businesses, relationships with the human colonists. Jade leaned forward, relief flooding her face. The frontier communities. We've been helping them for decades. Coordinator Tesh appeared on screen next to Vex. We've conducted preliminary interviews with the non-human residents. They all tell the same story. When disasters strike planets in the frontier systems, planets with harsh environments that standard rescue teams can't reach, humans go in. They evacuate people, rebuild settlements, provide aid. Because we can survive what others can't, Jade explained. When a volcanic eruption threatened a Vexian mining operation 5 years ago, the heat and toxic gases made it impossible for normal rescue ships to get close. My brother and 20 other volunteers went in on foot through the worst of it. They brought out 46 miners. All of them survived. Kevin pulled up environmental data from that eruption. The temperatures had reached levels that would have killed most species within minutes. The air had been filled with gases that were lethal to breathe. But humans, with their heat tolerance and robust respiratory systems, had been able to function long enough to conduct a rescue. Arbiter Klein's face appeared on the transmission. He looked thoughtful and troubled at the same time. We're discovering that Haven Colony has conducted 47 documented rescue operations over the past 20 years. Operations in environments that were considered too dangerous for standard emergency services. We don't do it for recognition, Jade said quietly. We do it because we can. Because people need help and we're able to give it. Kevin ran new calculations based on everything he was learning. Administrator Vex, I'm sending you comparative data now. Humans didn't evolve to be warriors or conquerors. They evolved to be survivors. Earth was so harsh that they had to develop extreme resilience just to exist. That same resilience makes them ideal for rescue operations in hostile environments. Vex studied the data Kevin sent. You're saying their evolutionary advantages are defensive, not offensive? I'm saying humans are built to endure, not to attack, Kevin clarified. Yes, they're stronger and tougher than most species. But they also have enhanced empathy and social bonding because humans survived by working together. A lone human on Earth would have died. They needed communities, cooperation, shared knowledge. That's built into who they are. Coordinator Tesh was interviewing someone off camera. She turned back to the transmission. We just spoke with a Centaurian family who lost their settlement to a massive storm 3 years ago. They say Jade's people provided shelter, food, and helped them rebuild. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. Jade smiled slightly. That's the Reeves family. Good people. Their daughter and my niece are best friends now. Arbiter Klein spoke carefully. For 500 years, we've maintained the quarantine because we feared human expansion. We thought your species would dominate through conquest or competition. But what if we were wrong? What if humans are actually natural protectors? Kevin pulled up one final piece of data. I've been analyzing human psychology based on historical records and my conversations with Jade. Humans have an unusually strong protective instinct toward those they consider part of their group. And humans have a tendency to expand their definition of their group to include anyone they interact with regularly. It's a survival mechanism. More allies meant better chances of surviving on Earth. So you're saying humans don't see other species as competition, Vex said slowly. They see them as potential allies. Or people worth protecting, Jade added. We survived Earth. Maybe that means we understand better than anyone what it's like to need help surviving. The transmission from Haven Colony continued to show scenes of cooperation between species. Kevin watched as a human helped a Vexian repair a building, as an Aquilian and a human shared a meal, as children of different species played together without any apparent concern about their differences. The Council needs to see this, Arbiter Klein said. All of this. The biology, the rescue operations, the integration. We've been operating on 500-year-old fears. Perhaps it's time we looked at the reality instead. Kevin glanced at Jade through the communication screen. She looked hopeful for the first time since her capture. Maybe, just maybe, the galaxy was ready to see humans not as threats, but as what they really were. Survivors who had learned that the best way to survive was to help others survive too. Jade turned to Kevin. How long would radiation like that take to kill a human? Kevin's mind raced through calculations, considering everything he knew about human cellular regeneration and immune response. Based on your healing capabilities, you might have 2 hours before the damage becomes irreversible. Maybe. I can't be certain. 40 minutes to get the miners out, Jade said quietly. 2 hours before I die. That's enough time. Absolutely not, Vex said immediately. We're not sending you on a suicide mission to prove a point. Jade was already moving toward the exit. You're not sending me. I'm volunteering. You want to know what humans do when people are in danger? You want to see what we're really capable of? Watch. Kevin followed her into the corridor. Jade, wait. This is incredibly dangerous even for you. Those radiation levels could kill you. She stopped and turned to face him. There was no fear in her eyes, only determination and something else. Purpose. Kevin, there are 47 people on that platform about to die, she said simply. And I can save them. Isn't that what this whole debate has been about? Whether humans can be trusted with abilities that other species don't have. She smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Time to show them the answer. She headed toward the docking bay to commandeer a fast ship. Kevin stood in the corridor, knowing he should stop her but also knowing he wouldn't. The entire council was watching through security feeds, seeing a human run toward danger instead of away from it. Administrator Vex's voice came through Kevin's communication device. Dr. Taylor, you need to stop her. No, Kevin said quietly. I need to let her show you who humans really are. As Jade prepared for launch, the council members watched in silence. The vote on humanity's future would have to wait. First, they would see what one human could do when lives were on the line. And Kevin had a feeling the answer would change everything. 6 months had passed since the council meeting, and the galaxy had transformed in ways nobody could have predicted. The change started small, with a handful of mining colonies requesting human wellness coordinators. Within weeks, the requests multiplied. Factories wanted breakroom consultants. Military academies asked for recreational activity planners. Trading stations needed social space designers. Rachel found herself overwhelmed with applications. Her small counseling practice had evolved into something resembling a galactic employment agency. Every day brought new requests, new opportunities, and new challenges. She sat in her cramped office, reviewing the latest batch of proposals, when David knocked on her door. You're not going to believe this one, he said, sliding a data pad across her desk. The Kryn Empire wants us. Rachel's eyes widened. The Kryn were known throughout the galaxy as the most rigid, militaristic civilization in existence. Their society operated on pure efficiency. Every moment was scheduled. Every action served a purpose. The idea of them wanting anything related to rest seemed impossible. What exactly do they want? Rachel asked carefully. David grinned. They want to understand why their soldiers keep defecting to planets with human populations. Apparently they're losing troops at an alarming rate, and High Command is panicking. The pattern had become clear over recent months. Alien soldiers stationed near human colonies were abandoning their posts. They weren't running to enemy territory. They were running toward humans. Some simply wanted to experience what they'd heard about. Others craved the connection they'd witnessed. Many just wanted to know what it felt like to truly rest. Rachel accepted the Kryn assignment, though she knew it would be her most difficult yet. She arrived on their homeworld to find a society that made Zaratha's old crew look relaxed by comparison. The cities gleamed with cold perfection. Citizens moved through streets with mechanical precision. Children attended efficiency training before they could walk properly. Her first meeting with the Kryn military leadership went exactly as she expected. 10 high-ranking officers sat in perfect formation, their expressions revealing nothing. They listened to her presentation about rest and recreation with what seemed like polite confusion. "We do not understand the logic," the highest-ranking officer stated flatly. "You propose that our soldiers perform less work. How does reduced productivity benefit the Empire?" Rachel had learned from her experience with the Vorten Council. She didn't argue philosophy this time. Instead, she opened her data pad and showed them numbers. Human military units with proper rest protocols showed 30% fewer errors. Factories with break schedules experienced 40% fewer accidents. Ships with recreational facilities had 50% better crew retention. The officers studied the data in silence. Numbers spoke to them in ways emotions never could. "We will permit a trial program," the lead officer finally announced. "You may implement your protocols with one training battalion. We will measure the results." Rachel spent the next month working with 200 Kryn soldiers who viewed her with deep suspicion. They followed her instructions mechanically at first, treating mandated rest periods like another military drill. They sat in the recreation room she designed, staring at the walls with practiced discipline. But gradually something shifted. One soldier picked up a simple puzzle game Rachel had left on a table. Another started sketching in a notebook during quiet time. 2 more began playing a card game that required no skill, just luck and conversation. Rachel watched it happen slowly. Their rigid postures softened. Their clipped speech patterns relaxed. They started laughing at mistakes instead of reporting them as failures. Within weeks, the transformation became visible. The soldiers moved differently, spoke differently, and most importantly, performed differently. The testing results shocked the Kryn leadership. The battalion with rest protocols scored higher in every category. Sharper reflexes, better decision-making, improved teamwork, lower stress markers. The data was undeniable. Within a year, rest protocols became mandatory throughout the Kryn military. Within 2 years, they'd spread to civilian sectors. The most rigid civilization in the galaxy had embraced the concept of rest, not because they understood it emotionally, but because they couldn't argue with the results. Similar transformations occurred across hundreds of worlds. The Dravix mining corporations discovered that workers with proper break schedules extracted 30% more or with half the injuries. The Yilian manufacturing conglomerates found that recreational facilities reduced employee turnover to nearly zero. The Tenthari research institutes learned that scientists with work-life balance made breakthrough discoveries at unprecedented rates. Human consultants became the most sought-after professionals in the galaxy. Not because humans were smarter or stronger or more advanced. Simply because they understood something fundamental that other species had forgotten or never learned. Rachel stood on the observation deck of a transport ship, heading to her next assignment. Below her, a Kryn colony world gleamed in the light of its blue sun. She could see the new parks and recreational centers dotting the previously barren cityscape. Somewhere down there, Kryn children were learning that life could include moments of joy alongside moments of duty. Her communicator chimed with 3 new requests. A mining operation on the frontier needed help designing break schedules. A military academy wanted to add recreational programs to their curriculum. A research station asked for guidance creating social spaces. The galaxy was learning to rest, one world at a time.